time? Out of the little spigot. What was it?
Lemonade.
Delicious lemonade. And so today's title is How to Make Lemonade. And my wife said, well, you just open the can and put a certain number of scoops in. That's not it. That would be a very short message.
Is it on?
Oh, it was on mute.
There we go. That's better.
Okay, there. So we're talking about how to make lemonade tonight. And I want to tell you a little story. There was a bricklayer who had an accident on a construction site, and he had to file a real detailed report for the insurance company. And this is what he wrote. I'm a bricklayer by trade, and on the day of the accident, I was working alone on the roof of a new 6-story building. When I completed my work, I discovered that I had a sizable pile of bricks left over, and rather than carrying the bricks down by hand, I decided to lower them in a barrel using a pulley that was attached to the edge of the roof on the side of the building. After securing the rope at ground level, I went back up the roof, swung the barrel out, and loaded the bricks into the barrel. I then went to the ground and untied the rope, holding it tightly to ensure a slow descent of the bricks. You will notice I stated in block number 2 of the accident report that I weigh 150 pounds. The bricks, as I was soon to discover, weighed slightly more than 500 pounds. My weight was not enough to keep me down. Due to my surprise at being jerked off the ground by the bricks, I lost my presence of mind and failed to let go of the rope. Needless to say, I proceeded up the side of the building at a rather rapid rate of speed. In the vicinity of the 3rd floor, I met the barrel coming down. This explains my fractured skull and broken collarbone. The collision with the barrel slowed me down only slightly. I continued up the building at an alarming rate, unable to stop until my right hand was jammed into the pulley at the top of the building. This explains my 3 broken fingers. Fortunately, I was able to hold on to the rope in spite of my pain. It was at this time the barrel of bricks slammed against the ground, tearing the bottom out of the barrel. Devoid of the weight of the bricks, the barrel now only weighed approximately 50 pounds. I refer you again to my weight in block number 2. As you might imagine, I began a rather rapid descent down the side of the building. In the vicinity of the 3rd floor, I met the barrel on its way up. This accounts for my broken ankle and the lacerations along the left side of my body. This encounter with the barrel slowed me down enough to minimize my injuries when I landed on a pile of bricks on the ground. I'm sorry to report that as I laid on my back, looking at the empty barrel 6 stories above me, I again lost my presence of mind and let go of the rope. The empty barrel weighed more than the rope, so it came zooming back down. This explains my broken right arm. He concluded his report by saying this: I hope you find this information useful as you process my claim. Now here's a man who knows what it's like to have a bad day. Do you know how he feels? Some days it feels like that, doesn't it? He's not alone. We all at one time or another in our lives kind of feel that way. We find ourselves in situations where nothing seems to go right. And many of us are facing challenges like that right now. Maybe it's your job or your marriage or your financial situation or your health, or maybe it's all of those things. But the good news is, whatever your problems may be, it's possible to face adversity with confidence and boldness. And the Bible shows us how. Let's look at Philippians 1, 12 to 26. Philippians 1, 12 to 26. It's toward the back of the Old Testament. Or New Testament, excuse me. Go ahead. Doing well. Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians. Paul wrote Philippians during a time in his life when life had given him nothing but lemons. And he was in jail, he was living under a death threat while being separated from the people he cared about, and on top of that, he knew that his enemies were celebrating his incarceration. But in spite of this, Philippians is full of joy, and it's an optimistic book, and Paul has shown us in Philippians how to make lemonade when life gives us lemons. And the passage that we're going to look at demonstrates Paul's attitude towards problem situations. And there's kind of 3 steps involved. And the first step to developing an attitude of optimism or in making lemonade out of lemons is this. Consider the benefits. Okay? Consider the benefits. Paul begins this passage by listing all of the good things that have happened as a result of his imprisonment. In verse 12, he says that this has helped to spread the gospel. In verse 13, he says the brethren have become more confident in speaking the word. In verses 15 to 18, he says regardless of people's motives, whether they're doing it out of selfish ambition or out of true love for Christ, regardless of their ambitions, Christ is being preached. Now, take a look at your problems that you're going through at this time and ask yourself, what are the benefits of this situation? The benefits might not always be obvious to us. In fact, they might be hidden, but you're going to find them if you really spend some time looking at them. Anybody heard of Corrie ten Boom? She was a prisoner of war in a German concentration camp. Well, while she was in that concentration camp, her entire body became infested with lice, making even a bad situation worse. And she was complaining about it one day. And she was complaining, I got these lice, I can't get rid of them, it's horrible, they itch, I'm just bleh. And her sister reminded her of the Bible verse that says, in everything give thanks. And she challenged her, Corrie, give thanks even in this. Give thanks for the lice. And Corrie's response was, how? It'd probably be my response. How in the world can I give thanks to God for lice? This is not a pretty picture. We had lice one time in our house. We had Sheila and Savannah both got lice, and so we got the treatments, and that didn't work, so we got some from the doctor, and that finally worked. And we told our daughters if they ever came home with lice again, we were going to shave them bald. Because it was so horrible. I'm not kidding you. We told them, if you come home with lice, if you share brushes and hats and all that kind of garbage at school again, we're going to shave you bald. And they never came home with lice again. But it was a horrible thing. So how can you give thanks to God for lice? But later, she made a choice to do it anyway. And so she began to give thanks to God for the lice. It's interesting that she found out a little bit later on that the lice had actually protected her from the assaults of the German soldiers. They didn't want to assault a woman who was full of lice for fear that they would get it themselves. You see, every problem has benefits. We just need to learn to look for them. I'll admit that this isn't always easy. Our natural tendency is not to look for the good things, to look for the positive benefits. Our natural tendency is to only look at the problem. And the more we look at the problem, the bigger it gets until our perception becomes completely distorted. And you've heard that saying, we can't see the forest for the trees, right? All you can see is the trees in front of you, but you can't see the beautiful forest. We make a mountain out of a molehill by focusing on the molehill and just seeing the problem. And that's all we see. And at that point, it's really easy to become sidetracked and lose sight of our priorities. And when you lose sight of your priorities, it's impossible to see the benefits of any kind of problem. Years ago, there was a manager named Charlie Grimm who managed the Chicago Cubs. And they were experiencing an extended batting slump that caused them to slip down into last place in their division. And of course, the newspapers back in the day were giving Charlie Grimm a really hard time about it, asking, why can't you get some decent hitters? Why can't you guys hit? Teach your guys to hit. You guys are horrible hitters. And they focused all on that. And one evening there was a Chicago Cubs scout who called. And he phoned from a small town in Nebraska and he said, Coach Grimm, I've just stumbled onto a great pitching find. This afternoon, the kid pitched a perfect game. 27 strikeouts in a row. Unheard of. Nobody even touched the ball until a guy hit a foul ball in the last inning. Coach, I've got the kid right here with me now. Shall I sign him up? Coach Grimm said, no, we don't need pitchers, we need hitters. You see, see how focusing on the problem can stop us from seeing maybe a possible another solution. Because if you have a pitcher that gets everybody out all the time, you only need one guy who can hit. You don't need 9 guys who can hit all the time. You only need 1 hit maybe to win a game. Our priorities can become distorted when we keep our eyes on that problem. Instead of looking for solutions, we spend our time trying to put out fires. And Paul in Philippians here, his main priority was the gospel of Jesus Christ. And he wasn't concerned with putting out the fire of his imprisonment. He wasn't concerned with putting out the fire of these other guys who were preaching maybe from wrong motives. He was concerned with spreading the fire of the gospel. He didn't complain about the unfair treatment that he had received. He didn't ask the Philippian church to start a petition drive demanding his release. He didn't ask them to bake a cake and send a file in it so that he could get out. He didn't ask any of that. He didn't try to organize any protest groups. He didn't block the freeways. He didn't, get people up in arms. He wasn't worried at all about the effect his adversity would have on him himself. He was only thinking about how his imprisonment would impact the spread of Christianity. So one problem, or one benefit of every problem, is that it gives you the opportunity to evaluate your priorities. Is your relationship with Jesus Christ more important than anything else? And when your priorities are in order, it's easy to see some of the other benefits as well. The second step to developing optimism in the face of adversity, the second step to making lemonade out of lemons is this. Consider the limitations. Got to consider the benefits, consider the limitations. If your problems seem insurmountable, you need to change your perspective. There are few things even the worst problem in the world can do. They can't separate you from God's love. Romans tells us that. Where do I go to get away from God's love? If I go to the highest heights, if I go to the lowest lows, if I go into the bottom of the sea, if I go anywhere, your love is still there. It can't separate us from the love of God. It can't separate, no problem can separate us from God's family. And it can't separate us from God's protection. God is bigger than any problem we will ever face. And God has the ability to turn any problem into, either way I win. Either way I win. See how Paul puts this adversity in perspective. He says in verse 20 of Philippians 1, "It is my eager expectation and hope that I will not be put to shame in any way, but that by my speaking with all boldness, Christ will be exalted now, as always, in my body, whether by life or by death. For to me, living is Christ and dying is gain." See, optimism in the face of adversity is simply a matter of perspective. Paul's saying here that, you know what, whether I live or die, it doesn't matter. If I live, I get to keep preaching. If I die, I get to go to heaven. So it really doesn't matter what happens to me. That's just the details. For example, there was another baseball thing. There was a cocky pitcher for the 1960 New York Mets playing his very first major league game, but things weren't going well. In fact, in the first inning, he walked the first 7 batters that he faced. And Coach Stengel got mad at him, went in, took him out of the game, and the rookie stormed into the dugout grumbling something along the lines of, "How do you like that? He takes me out of the game just as I have a no-hitter going." Finding the limitations of a problem involves changing our perspective. Our problems are not all-powerful. God is all-powerful. Also, in the midst of adversity, you have 2 things going for you. You have the power of prayer and you have the power of the Holy Spirit. That's what Paul says in verse 19. "For I know that through your prayers and the help of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, this will turn out for my deliverance." Think about the problems that you're facing right now. What is it that you're focusing on? Do you keep reminding yourself about all the damage that this problem could cause? Do you catch yourself saying, "Well, this is going to be the end of me. I'll be ruined. I'll never be able to bounce back"? Try this instead. Instead of focusing on all that a problem can do, focus on all that a problem can't do. It can't defeat you because either way you win. That's the way God arranged it. It can't separate you from the love of God. It can't separate you from God's people. It can't beat you. And the third step to developing optimism in the face of adversity, the third step to learning how to make lemonade from the lemons that life hands you is this. Consider the opportunities. We've looked at the benefits. We've looked at the limitations. Consider the opportunities. I found this really interesting. Maybe some of you knew this. I didn't know this until I was preparing for this message. But the Chinese word for crisis, what we would say crisis, oh, I have a crisis here. The Chinese word for crisis is a compound of two words. Dangerous, opportunity. Isn't that interesting? A crisis is a dangerous opportunity. Every problem you face is an opportunity for God to accomplish something in your life. A few years ago at Trinity Life Church, we went through this process where we identified our strengths and we identified our weaknesses, only we didn't call them weaknesses, we called them opportunities for growth. That's what we're talking about here. Every problem we face is an opportunity for God to accomplish something in our lives. It's most likely going to involve helping people because that's why we're here. He gives us spiritual gifts so that we can use them for the benefit of others. We don't keep our spiritual gifts to ourselves and hold on to them and say, it's mine, you know, kind of like Gollum in the precious ring in Lord of the Rings. My precious. You know, that's not the way we should be with our spiritual gifts. It's not the way we should be with our fruit of the Spirit. Fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. And when you think about that, those things are only evident when you're with other people. Love, how do you know if you have love? Only if you're with other people. Joy, really only you can show it to other people. Peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, all deal with other people. And so it's the opportunities to work and help other people grow in the knowledge and the grace of Jesus Christ. Paul had committed himself to that, so prison wasn't an obstacle for him. It was an opportunity to write letters to churches that he couldn't visit. I'm sure at the time Paul didn't sit down and write and think, okay, I'm going to write this letter to the Philippians, and one day Todd's going to be reading it from it at Cowboy Church. He's going to preach from this because this is going to become the Word of God. I think he was just writing an encouraging letter to the church at Philippi. Same with his other prison epistles. He was simply motivated by the desire to help people. Look what he writes in verse 23. My desire is to depart and be with Christ, for that is far better. What he's saying is, you know, if I had my will, they'd just kill me and I'd get to go to heaven. And I don't know for sure if he was feeling a little down at this point or he was just being realistic. You know, if I had my druthers, it wouldn't be bad to go to heaven. But it doesn't stop there. He says, my desire is to depart and be with Christ, for that is far better. But to remain in the flesh is more necessary for you, since I am convinced of this. I know that I will remain and continue with all of you for your progress and joy in faith. He's saying, I'd really like to go to heaven, but I really believe that I'm going to stay here so that I can encourage you guys. So that you can be built up in your faith, so that you'll be able to stand in these times of trial. Anybody heard of the guy named John Walsh? Okay. John Walsh dropped off his 6-year-old son at a mall video arcade. The young boy named Adam was abducted and murdered. And as a result of that tragedy, the Adam Walsh Foundation was established to help others facing the same kind of tragedy and to teach parents how to minimize the risk of their children becoming victimized. John Walsh was able to turn that horrendous disaster into an opportunity to help many people. And nobody really likes living through a crisis. Nobody really likes living through something painful. Given a choice, we would definitely choose the easy way. I know I would. I'll take the easy way. But one certainty of life is that we're all going to face adversity at one time or another. Jesus even told us that. He said, in this world, you're going to have trouble. You're going to have problems. You're going to have stuff. And then he said, but take heart because I have overcome the world. We're going to face adversity at one time or another. The question is, how will you use that adversity to help other people? And one thing that we've discovered in the years of being in ministry is this. As we've ministered to people and we've even gone through stuff in our lives, if we will allow God to use it, God will take the things that are the very most hurtful things in our lives. And He will take those things and use them for His honor and glory if we'll give them to Him and allow Him permission to use them. How are you going to use your adversity to help others? Alcoholics Anonymous and Celebrate Recovery were built on this principle. Once a person goes through the steps and they're able to overcome an addiction to alcohol or drugs or food or whatever else they're battling, that person is in a position to help others facing the same kind of challenge. That's the last step. Having learned this stuff, I'm now going to take this to other people. I'm now going to share this with other people. Every problem has hidden opportunities for ministry. When we search for the opportunities, the problems become powerless. We take away the problem's power when we allow God to use it for His honor and glory. When Jesus died, nearly all of His disciples thought all hope was lost. The problem was much too big. Jesus is dead. Here's this guy who told us He was going to come and He was going to be the Messiah and He was going to set up His kingdom and He was going to do all of this stuff. And now He's dead. They didn't see the benefits of the problem. Jesus dying on the cross means that we won't have to sacrifice the rest of our lives for the sins that we commit. Jesus dying on the cross and rising again and going to heaven means that the Holy Spirit is going to come and be able to indwell each of us who accept Him as Lord and Savior. They didn't realize that by His death, Jesus was going to take away the sins of the world. That by His death, we would have access to the throne of God. All of the benefits of Jesus dying on the cross, they weren't able to see at that time. They didn't see the limitations. That death didn't have the power to keep Him in the grave. He had told them, I'm going to tear down this temple and I'm going to build it up in 3 days. I'm going to rise again. I'm going to die and I'm going to come back again. You're going to see me again. You know where I'm going because you're going to come with me. And all of these things that He told His disciples, and it just kind of over their head. They didn't see the limitations of His death. Death, the grave could not hold Him. And they also didn't see the opportunity of His resurrection. That salvation was going to be offered to everyone. Not just those who could sacrifice, not just those who wanted to practice the Jewish religion, but it would come to the Gentiles, it would come to every nation. They didn't realize the opportunity that through Jesus Christ, every knee is going to bow, every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Didn't recognize that Jesus was going to gather to Himself followers from every tribe, tongue, and nation. And that He was going to build His kingdom, a spiritual kingdom, not an earthly kingdom, at that time. One day he's going to come and he's going to set up that earthly kingdom. But they didn't realize what great opportunities there were going to be for those who believe on Jesus Christ. You know, if you don't get anything else out of this tonight, what I want you to understand is that I don't believe that God gives us problems as punishment. I don't believe that God is up there waiting for us to screw up so that he can bonk us on the head with a billy club so that he can get us. He's not a big, mean policeman in the sky. I believe that our problems that we experience, sometimes from our own stupid choices, sometimes unknowingly we get into situations that cause us problems, sometimes because of what other people do to us, we get into situations that cause problems. But I don't believe that they're punishment. What I believe is that they are an opportunity for us to experience the power of God in our lives. And if we will turn them over to him, we'll be able to help him make lemonade from the lemons of our life. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you that we can make lemonade out of our problems. And that you desire to help us do that. God, that if we will just listen to you, follow you, and give you the problems that we face, God, that they will be turned into good. Your word promises that, Romans 8:28. We know that all things work together for good to them who love him, to them who are called according to his purpose. God, you will turn all of our problems into opportunities. Help us to see the benefits, help us to see the limitations, and help us to see those opportunities that our problems present. Help us have you as our first concern so that we can just honor and glorify you in our lives and be used by you to help others in their lives. We just thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.